Confident that the Supreme Court will not take what would be an unprecedented, extraordinary step of overturning a law that was passed by a strong majority of a democratically elected Congress.
In fact, the law passed with only Democratic votes and no Republican support in both chambers, 219 to 212 in the House and 60 to 39 in the Senate. Yet putting on his former constitutional law professor hat in the Rose Garden at the end of a summit with the leaders of Canada and Mexico, the president answered a question about the fate of the law by signaling he's ready to call out the right if Chief Justice John Roberts and his colleagues do not side with the administration.
I just remind conservative commentators that for years what we've heard is the biggest problem on the bench was judicial activism or a lack of judicial restraint. An unelected group of people would somehow overturn a duly constituted and passed law.
Law review. He taught constitutional law at the University of Chicago, two of the best law schools in the country, and he's rejecting a basic premise of American law that has not been seriously questioned in 175 years, which is this. The courts have the right to review what the Congress does and what the president does, and if the courts find that behavior unconstitutional, they can void, they can invalidate what the Congress and the president does. That's our system. That's what preserves the Constitution against the tyranny of the majority. No president has questioned this since Andrew Jackson.
Could he possibly have been saying, look, if this is not upheld, the ruling would be illegitimate? And I'm really kind of talking to Justice Kennedy over there, who probably is a swing vote. You got 3 months. I vote. You say it's okay.
That's why we have a life-tenured, independent judiciary, so that it cannot be cowed by politicians, no matter how well-intended the politicians could be. Look, if this is invalidated, the president can say it was invalidated by the court, not by me. If this is upheld, the president can say, look, even a court appointed by a Republican president's upheld this. But for him to question the power and ability and authority of the court to review it and to decide if it's unconstitutional is incomprehensible.
Kind of looks like he's declared war on the Supreme Court.
It kind of looks like he's desperate.
This president has clashed with this court before, taking the extraordinary step of using his State of the Union 2 years ago to call out justices in the audience over the Citizens United campaign finance decision.
The Supreme Court reversed a century of law that I believe will open the floodgates for special interests.
Back then, Justice Samuel Alito noticeably shook his head and blurted, "Not true."
I also think it's really quite a curious turn of events for him to start complaining about an activist court. Look, the whole idea of a court that is not an activist court is one that follows the Constitution. An activist court is one that departs from the Constitution and begins legislating from the bench. That's what we've been complaining about for years with some of the court's decisions. In this case, the court is doing the job they were put in place to do, which is they will opine as to whether Obamacare violates the Constitution. I believe it does. I think they're going to say it does. And that will not be an activist court. That will be a court following the Constitution.